Well, let's get more on what's going on with this and the rest of the world of football transfers. Here's talkSPORT's chief football correspondent, Alex Crook. Morning, Crookie.
Morning, Crookie.
Good morning.
Well, why would Arsenal want to splash that much cash on a defender when they look pretty well stocked to me?
Yeah, they do. I think this deal is going to be dependent on outgoings. There's talk of Jakub Kiwior joining Porto on loan initially with an obligation to make that move permanent at the end of the season. I think Alexander Zinchenko has been quite public in the fact that he's not happy about a lack of minutes. So if those two were to leave, then there would be a gap in the squad. As you mentioned, Hincapié is a left-sided centre-back, but he can also play at left-back. So I think Mikel Arteta likes his versatility. And I think really, we've been talking about this a while, it's Mikel Arteta guarding against what happened last season where Arsenal's title campaign really was derailed by injuries and some suspensions early on. He wants 2, maybe even 3 players for every position. Of course, they've already lost Bukayo Saka and Martin Odegaard. Thankfully, from an Arsenal perspective, we understand not to long-term injuries, but already the squad is stretched and we're only 2 games into the season. What I will say, watching Liverpool last night, and I watched Arsenal at Old Trafford last weekend, they're already the best defence in the Premier League for me. I think there are question marks defensively, not just over the champions, but Manchester City and Chelsea. I think they're all going to concede goals.
Yep.
I think if it comes down to who is the hardest to score against, then Arsenal should win the league. And with all this money that's being plundered on the squad, I think Mikel Arteta is out of excuses now. I think they have to go on and claim the title.
I just think that the 2 centre-backs and the goalkeeper in particular are vital, them, Crookie. And I know that they've lost one or the other, maybe the last couple of seasons, and I think it's cost them. But I just think they've got to keep the 2 centre-backs and the goalkeeper fit, mate.
I agree. And obviously you've got Declan Rice with that shield in front of the back 4 as well, but they've got options in the fullback areas. They were able to change both fullbacks at the weekend. Correct. And obviously both of them had a massive say on the outcome. So I think, again, if you're comparing the title rivals, and we're only 2 games into the season, we don't want to get too carried away. But their squad does look the deepest, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And having watched last night, Crookie, again, you just wonder whether that would encourage Liverpool to splash the cash on Mark Guéhi. Though I read this week that maybe Manchester City were interested in hijacking that deal.
That's been played down to me by sources at Manchester City. I don't believe that Guéhi is a hot topic of conversation there at the moment. But you're right, Liverpool have got big decisions to make in the final week of the window, not just Alexander Isak, do they go back in again with a British record bid, but with Guéhi as well, because they have looked vulnerable. I think Konaté's form in the first couple of games of the season would be a bit of a concern.
What about Guéhi? We were talking about it, Crookie, Jeff and I, earlier on. I mean, what a catch-22 for Palace. I mean, it really is. Obviously, lose their key man to Arsenal, and then if they lose the quality of their left-sided centre-back. But in business terms, they can't keep him, can they, if he doesn't sign an extension?
No, Steve Parish has said that himself, and he's a businessman, isn't he, Steve Parish, first and foremost. Obviously, they've lost Eze, they lost Elise last summer. They are a selling club. I think even the most ardent of Palace fan would have to admit that. And I think if they get a bid, certainly if they get a bid of £40 million or more from Liverpool for Guéhi, they almost have to cash in, because I don't think he's going to sign a new contract, and you can't afford to lose an asset so valuable for nothing at the end of the season. I think Guéhi's quite relaxed about the situation because he knows he's got European football. He's the captain. He's going to play week in, week out. And I think that is important to him in a World Cup year. But if he did get the move to Liverpool, I think he'd back himself to go in and play alongside Virgil van Dijk, particularly, as I say, with Konaté not starting the season in great form.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, Crookie. Chelsea's still looking to unload 1 or 2, aren't they? I'm reading reports of Nicholas Jackson to Bayern Munich. That's not too shabby a move.
It'd be a great move for him. Bayern are one of a number of clubs who are tracking the Jackson situation. Obviously, Aston Villa at the table as well, and potentially Newcastle, although at the moment they're putting a lot of energy into trying to sign Jurgen Strand-Larsen. One player definitely leaving Chelsea is Kane Chukwuemeka. He touched down in Germany on Sunday night, underwent a medical yesterday. I've just been told he's going to put pen to paper on a 5-year contract. That's going to be a deal that Chelsea sources say is worth in the region of £24 million. Good young player when he came from Aston Villa. They spent decent money on him, but he's not really had much of a look in the first team.
Crookie, what about a team, your own wee team there, Kobe Manu? What's going on there? Jeff and I were talking about it, and it's very early stage in the season, but I just don't think the manager fancies him that much.
Well, I think that's evident. The fact he's been left on the bench for the first two games, the midfield makeup for me was a bit baffling in the second half. On Sunday at Fulham. You had Mason Mount and Bruno Fernandes as the two holding midfielders. Clearly, neither of them are particularly suited to that position. Meanwhile, Mainu is kicking his heels on the bench, and he did look quite a frustrated figure at the end of the game. I've got to say, it caused an angry reaction in the Manchester United fan base when I broke the story yesterday morning that Kobbie Mainoo would consider a move away in the final week of the window. I think it's difficult because United will ask for big money for him, but I think he knows that Ruben Amorim doesn't fancy him. It's been going on since the back end of last season, and I think it's a real shame because I look at the impact he had when he first burst into the Manchester United team, the impact he had at the Euros when England were really struggling for that number 6. They obviously tried with Trent Alexander-Arnold. Conor Gallagher got half a game there. And it was only really when Kobbie Mainoo came into the team, I think it was in the third group game, that position became less of a headache. Yes, his form wasn't brilliant last season, but you're going to get that with a young player. But also, he's what Manchester United are built on. He's come through the academy. This is what Manchester United fans want to see. It's their DNA. So I do think if they do sell Kobbie Mainoo, then Ruben Amorim is going to get a bit of stick from the fans.
Do you think you could be ready for another potential McTominay situation, Crookie?
Well, quite possibly. Ballon d'Or nominated Scott McTominay. But I do rate Kobbie Mainoo that highly. I genuinely think, if he's managed in the right way, I think he's a top player. Yes, maybe you can say defensively he can switch off during games, but he's got an engine. I think he's got brilliant footwork. He knows where the goal is. He scored some brilliant goals, not least, of course, in the FA Cup final. So I think it's a real shame if Ruben Amorim can't find a way to integrate him into his system. And I've got to say, Ali and Jeff, you look at United early season, that system, and the fact he won't deviate away from it even mid-game, I think it's still a problem for United because it just doesn't look to me like the squad is suited to it, and you've still got square pegs in round holes.
Crookie, thanks very much indeed.
Thanks, Crookie. All the best, Paul.
Cheers, guys.
Tell me.
Jim in Sheffield says, great show, boys. Hopefully no Sheffield Wednesday fans in the ground tonight. Total boycott. No money for Chancery. And Foggy from Essex. Hi, boys. I was at Southend Hartlepool yesterday. My wife and I organised the kids waving the flags when the teams come out. So it was on the edge of the pitch in front of the director's box. I looked into the stand and I saw a frail old man walking with 2 sticks being helped to his seat by the stewards. You know what's coming. I immediately thought, hello, the Hartlepool chairman has lifted the ban on Stelling. Thank you, Foggy. Actually, in the times when I've got gout flare-ups, that wouldn't be so far off the truth, but I'm fully fit.
Thankfully.
At the moment. He can't ban me from away games. He hasn't actually banned me from home games either. I would say that. So hope you enjoyed the match. Anyway, Foggy, thank you very much indeed for that.
talkSPORT Breakfast, waking you up Monday to Friday morning from 6 a.m. on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.